Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We warmly welcome all of you to the professional series Innovation and Entrepreneurship, organized by the Association of International Marketing Graduates in Sri Lanka, the AIMG. Innovation involves new ideas that have a positive impact to a new product or service. Innovation also opens up paths to explore new markets, which would ultimately lead to an increase in sales and profitability of your business. Now, on the other hand, entrepreneurship is the act and even the art of undertaking innovation in an effort to bring dreams and ideas to reality. And the eminent personalities we have with us today for a panel discussion will take you through the depths of innovation and entrepreneurship, giving you a plethora of valuable insights. And before we commence today's proceedings, we would like to appreciate the support of our sponsors in various capacities. We have SLT Mobitel as the official telecommunication partner, Sampath Bank PLC coming on board as the official banking partner, Multilac as the official paint partner, and as corporate partners, we have Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation and Emerging Media. And to formally welcome you all for today's event with his welcome address, I cordially invite the Chairman of the Association of International Marketing Graduates in Sri Lanka, Mr. Sujit Silva.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Association of International Marketing Graduates in Sri Lanka, I warmly welcome you to the professional series, the Innovation and Entrepreneurship, a topic which is crucial for economic and social development, of course, considering the present status of the country. We at AIMGSL organize many events catering to the needs of our members. The professional series program will take you all through the relevant, important, and topical discussions that would be vital towards your professional development. Today's program will focus on how it's important to have innovation, entrepreneurship, to identify new trends and market demand. To present insights on this topic, I warmly welcome our distinguished speakers, keynote speaker, Mr. Ahmad Irfan, Chief Digital Officer, EFL, guest speaker and panelist, Mr. Prabhat Ambegoda, Chief Corporate and Innovation Officer, Sri Lanka Telecom Mobitel, followed by a panel discussion moderated by Dr. Nirmal De Silva, Strategy Consultant, SME Mentor, Board Director, and Associate Professor in Business Management. It is a pleasure to have you all with us. We warmly welcome you all and look forward to some interesting discussions and insights in this important topic. We have lined up a series of events and activities offering marketing insights, networking opportunities with fellow marketers, business leaders, and all our stakeholders. These events and activities are organized for your benefit and your professional development as well. The success of these programs are dependent on your participation and your engagement. Therefore, I request you all to make use of this opportunity, especially today's program. Once again, I warmly welcome everyone amidst your busy schedules, full crisis. You found time to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. We now move on to the keynote address, and it is my pleasure in introducing the keynote speaker today. Mr. Ahmed Irfan is the Chief Digital Officer at EFL, a global top 50 logistics and supply chain company. His experience spans across 23 years in emerging markets, digital trends, and business models. His expertise includes consumer insight, data and analytics, business model design, and technology product management. Mr. Irfan's previous assignments include Director Design and Innovation at MAS Holdings Bodyline, Chief Marketing Officer at Digital Commerce Lanka, Head of Marketing at Dialogue Asiata PLC, as well as Vice President Account Management and Digital at J. Walt Thompson, Sri Lanka. He's also the founder of Innovation Quotient Private Limited, a design and innovation think tank. Mr. Irfan is also a mentor of MIT Global Startup Labs program, as well as of Mora Ventures at the University of Moratuwa. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker of the event, Mr. Ahmed Irfan.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all here amidst the many challenges. And it's good to start networking again. Earlier we couldn't go out, but now we can't go out. So I think between the two, we just miss seeing each other and meeting people. So I'd first like to thank Chairman Sujit, old friend, Sumudu and Sanjay, and AIMG for inviting me here to make this address. So I'm just going to take 20 to 25 minutes to share some thoughts, and then we're going to get in. I think Prabhat has also a lot of insight to offer, and we get into a panel discussion. So, as usual, technology can let you down a bit, but until it starts, innovation. What does it really mean? What can it unlock? How should we look at it? Is really quite a broad spectrum in terms of a conversation. Yeah, there you go. Right. So you will scroll it for me. Okay. All right. No. Okay. Not yet. Thank you. So when Subudhu called me and said, Irfan, we'd like to talk to you about innovation, and I asked how long do I have, he said, Machan, 25 to 30 minutes. I'm like, normally I need like a day or two to talk about it. It's quite broad. But I think what I would like to really do today is kind of outline a few basic things to think about. And I'm drawing on all of this from my personal journey. So there's a reason I kind of titled the presentation half in, half out. Because when you work in innovation, and I've been doing this actively now since I moved from my days in advertising and marketing into more digital, and it's generally something that you're never sure about. You're not really sure about what you're doing, why you're doing it. It's an uncomfortable space. I tell the rest of my colleagues, you have to be very comfortable with being uncomfortable when you work in innovation, because you're generally hedging on a large bet, right? And hence why a lot of organizations also don't really make that first move. But there is a way to think about it. And what I'd like to share with you today is how do you think about it? What key areas should you kind of address, and also talk from my personal experiences. So if you can scroll down, please. So let's try and look at a sweet spot for innovation and entrepreneurship. So this is where it kind of all starts for me, right? I think when it comes to business today, whether we run our own company or work for someone else, every business today is challenged, right? I was reading somewhere that during the pandemic, roughly 250 million families globally went into poverty, but there were also 570 new billionaires, right? So with change comes a downfall as well as opportunity. And the rate of change today is ridiculous, right? It's really, it's hard to keep up with. And as businesses today, we're challenged with two things. So this is the research that came out from McKinsey soon after the pandemic. So if you have a business competency today, right? So I work in freight, right? And we say supply chain and logistics, but we load cargo onto aircraft, right? And ships, freight. That's my competency. It's not going to last more than 5 years, right? So the average competency of a business today is down from 30 to 5 years, right? The average continuity of a business is down from 67 to 15 years. So what does this mean? It means we can't continue to do the same thing every day. We certainly can't continue to do the same thing and expect different results. We have to change our approach. We have to change the way we look at things, and we really have to change the way with how we run our businesses. And hence innovation, right? So a lot of organizations today say, maybe we need to look at innovation, but how do we look at it, right? And if we can scroll please. So that's what I really want to try and break down today. So in talking about innovation, I think I really like Venn diagrams, right? And sets, because it structures thinking. I try to make all my presentations like this now. So in talking about innovation, I'd first like to start off really trying to break down what's the difference between invention, innovation, and creativity, right? I think that's something we fundamentally need to get right. So, and then let's link that to entrepreneurship as well, right? So what's really invention? I think a lot of us believe that today innovation is firstly technology. Nirmal and I spoke, we are here to break some myths, right? So innovation is not technology, forget it. It doesn't mean you have to have the latest technology, right? So invention is great, but invention constantly suggests that you have to look for something new. So when you continue to look for something new, what happens? You have a bigger budget, you have more pressure from the board, and then you're wondering why innovation didn't work. Invention's great, right? It takes you into new realms, but it's not innovation. So invention is creating something new. You need it, but it's not essential. I would go so far as say it's not needed, right? Because anything that you need to do today has already been discovered. You just need to connect the dots differently. I'm wearing a watch today. It's not a watch, it's also part of a $20 billion wearable tech industry, right? And this technology, there's nothing new about this, right? You see a LED diode at the back. It's the same LED diode that's in the clip they put on your finger when you go into the hospital to take your pulse. But they built a $20 billion industry out of it. It's not new, right? So I come from technology, but I don't believe in it too much, right? So invention is great, it drives a lot of newness. Creativity, I think we all have it, right? When I talk about innovation, I kind of do this quick exercise. I pull out my phone and say, apart from using this phone for a call, for a message or social media, what else can I use this for? I'm not going to run this exercise now, but the answers I get is, sometimes people have told me as a weapon, so clearly aggression issues, but they've told me paperweight, picture frame, lots of answers, right? The ability to think, the ability to drive agile thinking around a potent question is creativity, and all of you have it. If I ask you that same question, you will all have ideas, right? That's creativity. But there's one guy who collects all his own phones, wrote a software to manage all of them on one platform and put them up in corners of buildings to create a building management system. Now that's innovation. Taking technology, taking an idea, creating value out of it, and bringing it to market. So to me, innovation is that. Using the power of invention, using the power of creativity, creating value in a market and creating an impact, and more importantly, making money out of it. I'll talk about it later. If you're not making money out of innovation, you're wasting everybody's time, right? So entrepreneurship is, I think our host opened up today, and I couldn't agree with her more. So that is a link between innovation and entrepreneurship. Innovation is actually making creativity happen, right? It's sometimes defined as creativity with a job to do. And that's why we need entrepreneurship. It's entrepreneurs who are actually good innovators. And therein lies the link. Okay, let's move on, please. Next one. Next Venn diagram. feel like I'm a grade 8 maths class. But all right. So what does innovation then really mean? It's actually three things, right? And you're mostly marketing people here. And I believe people from either marketing, research, or advertising backgrounds make good innovators because they can empathize much better than anybody else. You know the consumer, you know the market. And that's where you start creating value, right? So if you really look at the market and look at any innovation opportunity, it's always around, firstly, what's desirable? What does your market really want? What does your consumer want? If you can understand what's desirable, what's viable, which is, can I satisfy that need or want effectively, and then what's feasible from a technology point of view. So technology is important, but it doesn't drive the sweet spot. What really drives the sweet spot is, what does the customer or user want? What's desirable? What's feasible? Okay, now let's make technology happen. So that is the sweet spot we need to constantly look at. So if you look at, I'm trying to cram a lot in here, but successful innovation organizations set up their teams also in these three areas, right? They have entrepreneurs. So let's say, how does 3M drive innovation? Each team has a business entrepreneur who looks at the customer side of it, has a finance entrepreneur that looks at the viability side of it, and has a technology entrepreneur that looks at the technology side of it. And those three come to form one innovation team. That because you need to be able to find that sweet spot. It's very, 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 very important. Next, please. So I'd also like to use this time to bring up another example. This guy is my hero. Does anybody know who this is? Yeah. To me, he's the local MacGyver. I think some of you are old enough to know who MacGyver is. So, Ray was a lot of things. I think the most brilliant mind to come out of Sri Lanka. Invented a lot of things, had the quintessential tinkerer, constantly came up. So he invented the hand tractor, also the slope method of agriculture. I think you guys know all of this. The reason I put this picture up also is, I said you're half in, half out, right? When you work in innovation, people don't understand what you're doing. So there's an interesting concept called the innovator's dilemma. It's actually a book written by Professor Clay Christensen. I think Prabhat will align with me on this. When you want to do something new, someone will tell you not to do it, and they'll be absolutely right. You felt that? If you want to do something new, the rest of your organization will tell you, don't do it, and they'll be absolutely right. Right? In 1947, Watson told IBM computer, I think there'll be 5 computers for the whole world. Because in 1947, the computer was bigger than this room. Right? So when people tell you not to do something, they can only see today. But if you are looking for that sweet spot, right, you will be looking at what's coming tomorrow. So if you look at tomorrow, you will see the semiconductor industry, the shrinking computer, the mass manufacturing power, China, the internet being invented. There were signals for all of those, even as far as back as 1947. Problem is, we're also caught up with today, and we face these innovators' dilemmas. If even Ray came up with I forget the name, but he came up with a burner that can generate electricity by burning glycidia leaves. And he tried to make it happen for years, right? And the CEB chief engineer told him, if you make this happen, I will eat the glycidia leaves. After years, he made it happen. Right? He built a generator that can generate 24,000 units of electricity. We need that today also. Right? Because he, in 1955, he said, Sri Lanka needs to have an independent economy. Right? Because when someone went to see him, he asked him, you came in an imported car using imported fuel on a road that was built imported using imported butane tar. Why are you doing this? Right? So an innovator and a nationalist to the core. But now if Ray stopped, we won't probably have that today, right? So when you want to do something, you will be told not to do it. But as an innovator, you have to be able to push through. It's a lonely journey, it's a tough journey, but you need to be able to push through. And the best way to push through is to look at that sweet spot. So let's break that sweet spot down a little more. Yeah, so again, another one of my heroes, Marcus Aurelius. To me, this is innovation, right? You're taking different components and reorganizing it. And that really is, the secret of all victory, right? You reorganize the non-obvious. So let's look at some of those areas that we can reorganize. So I think innovation is also firstly mostly about people, right? People in terms of how do you understand your customer, their pain points, and how you want to solve their problems. It's also about process. Now, in organizations, we all run linear process. But imagine if you're trying to make something new, how many times you would have to fail before we get it right. So you need a process that enables that. It's called the iterative process. Right? A lot of organizations use design thinking as a principle to be able to do this. Today, design-driven organizations drive 3 times more value because they use the iterative design process to be able to build better products, right? So process is important. And more than anything today, information, data. What do you know about your customer? What do you know about your market? How are you building feedback loops? What information are you converting to insight today? Is becoming a huge source of innovation that organizations need to start depending on. And again, as marketers, you're sitting in the middle of this. You're sitting in the middle of people. You're sitting in the middle of process. You understand design, and you're sitting on a lot of data, right? So the ability to use it becomes critical. Next, please. The other thing I think we need to really drill down into is innovation is also about speed, right? You have to be able to bring speed into that process. We can't take too long to basically validate an idea. So today organizations are very linear, right? We have annual plan, we have monthly targets, we have budget reviews. You can't run innovation like that, right? So today organizations are actually splitting into 2. There's something called the performance organization, and there's something called the creative organization. So the performance organization I made this mistake, right? I'm like, to hell with those guys. The rest of my colleagues here know this. I had this famous mantra, do now and apologize later. I don't do that anymore, right? Because you never get, I can see them laughing, you don't get too far. The performance organized is important because it keeps today going. But and they run on a linear process, right? There's a plan, there's efficiency, and there are targets. But the creative organization is run very differently to be able to commit to an idea. A creative organization is how do you come up with an idea? How do you validate that idea? How do you come up with a prototype? How do you go to the market and get feedback? You can't run that to a linear plan. Right? It has to be structured, run very, very differently. And again, that level of flexibility happens mostly within a marketing and a product team. So to be able to bring that thought process into the marketing function is a lot easier than the rest of the organization. So speed is important, transformation is important. How we transform products, how we transform services, how we transform the way we think is very important. I think transformation also happens right from the top. Too many times I have worked with teams whose innovation KPIs have been market share and turnover. Disaster. Innovation KPIs are mostly about what is the value creation to the organization. How many new ideas, how many consumer problems are you solving? How much of those are converting into business case and therefore organizational impact. You transform the way you think. And more than anything, right? I think I am the most indisciplined guy you can find, but you can't innovate if you are not disciplined. Again, a lesson I learned the hard way. Innovation is about, more than anything, it's a process, right? So the process of identifying ideas, validating ideas, coming up with a business model for it, testing it with the market, running a feedback loop and improving it needs diligent discipline. As an innovator, we break the rules, we challenge the rules, but we're never indisciplined because, and that's what makes innovation difficult because if you're not disciplined, you move the goalpost and then people lose confidence in you, right? So I think it's very important to be disciplined as well. As marketing people, right? Innovation is also about empathy. How do I feel what you're feeling? How do I know what you know? How do I put myself in your shoes, right? Take any subject, today, or take any consumer situation today, right? I feel it on a daily basis, right? I wouldn't know the problems. I don't expect, let's say, decision makers and politicians to know what people are going through because they don't stand in the fuel queue. They have absolutely no empathy, right? Now that's the situation we all relate to. So how do you know what your consumer is going through if you don't put yourselves in their shoes, right? I'm sorry, I make, these are not bold statements for the sake of it, which is why I don't believe in research, right? Research doesn't work. Empathy works, right? How do you put research? By the time you do a panel and the data comes, bus is gone. We are dealing with micro trends today a lot faster. If I go back to my time in the apparel world, we're right now in fall, or in clothes of all are manufactured almost 12 months ago. How can you hit trend? Doesn't work. Same with what you guys are doing in marketing. Your research, your marketing plans, your numbers, your trends are too old. You're not responding to your customer. You're being extremely reactive. You're not being proactive. But if you're empathetic, you're living the life of the customer and you're structuring your insights around that, that's truly the opportunity for innovation. Which then leads me to the whole point around insight, right? How do we then use that empathy to create proper product insight, market insight, and really change the life of a customer or a consumer? If we drive strong empathy and insight, we also then need to be able to experiment, right? How do you get an idea right? Right? So organizations today don't have this capability. How do we commit to an idea? What's the cheapest way of getting a prototype out, experimenting it, know it will work if you don't put it out there? So innovation in boardrooms don't work. Innovation on whiteboards don't work. Innovation on Excel, I'm telling you what doesn't work, right? Doesn't work. Innovation therefore on PowerPoint doesn't work. Right? Innovation with customer insight and experimentation and prototypes works. Okay, very important point to note. Let's move on. I'm 25 minutes, a lot to say. I'm just giving you the nuggets, right? So having said all of that, so what does this really mean? I see three types of organizations today, right? Even in Sri Lanka. So the first type of organization is the type of organization we all work for, right? It's the linear organization. We look at how much profit we can make over how much a time, correct? Right? So what's great about these organizations? Think about everyone around this room. You have market share, you have cash flow, you have reserves, you have customers, you have equity, great. Where do you suck? You suck at innovation, right? Because you don't have agility, you don't have insight, you don't experiment. Nothing wrong, you just have to accept it, right? Let's go to the next one. The next type of organization doesn't really focus on time and money. They focus on how unique am I, okay? Which is, let's say only I can take a small drop of Sujit's blood and say everything that's wrong with him. Nobody else can do it in the world. So I'm unique, right? And because I can do that, I'm worth $10 billion value. There is no conversation of revenue, profit, nothing. I'll be worth $10 billion in 5 years. So yay. So what's great about these companies? Highly innovative, very agile, very experimentative. No customers, no market share, no equity, no validation, no real value, book value. Startups of this world don't believe in it either, right? They're highly inventive, but they're not innovative, right? Why are they not innovative? Because they're not creating value. They're just creating number value, book value, Excel sheets. Doesn't work. So I think the organizations that really get it right are organizations that are, so, I'm sure you've heard of the innovation loop, right? Which is, or in almost every industry, you find challengers coming and challenging the incumbent. But at the end of the day, the incumbent will win if they get their innovation strategy right? Because at the end of the day, you can't beat cash flow. You can't beat customers. You can't beat brand equity. You can't beat channel. But what you need to do is separate your performance organization from your creative organization. Really look at, yes, I am for profit, But at any given time, how am I also driving unique value to the market? How am I creating unique options with channel, with customer, with product, with all aspects of either my marketing mix or my strategy, right? And there are enough, I promise Sanjay, I'm not going to talk about international examples because that's all we hear, right? But there are enough local organizations that's doing this, right? MAS has Twinery, right? They're a $3 billion company, today almost half a, $200-300 million coming out of Twinery. So does Bandix. Hemas used to have Slingshot. I'm not sure if it's around anymore. But a lot of organizations are trying this. It won't work initially. It will work eventually, right? Being able to separate and really look at how am I driving this inventiveness in an organization to drive innovation and create more value, and I used to joke around with my marketing director, when I used to say, you're thinking about today and I'm thinking about tomorrow, but let's work together. Right? That's how it should be, right? So it's really important to get to this state. And again, as marketing people, this change is up to you, because nobody else can bring that outside in view to the organization. It's all yours. Okay, next please. So which brings me to the last point. The other sweet spot that really needs to work for innovation and entrepreneurship from an organizational point of view is, I think, leadership. Too many leaders are scared, right, of making that change. They don't want to sacrifice today's margins, today's profits, today's customers for something that's not predictable. But I see leaders also in this room who are making that change. You have to be okay with failing, and you have to be okay with trying, and you have to be okay with letting go a little bit of market share and customer for what you don't know, because that's going to come and save you later if you do it right. It's also about failure. We, as a nation, we punish failure. But what about celebrating failure and learning from it? The more we fail, the more, of course, you can't fail stupid, then you get kicked out, right? But if you want to come up with something, create value, challenge a market, solve a customer problem, you need to fail. You're not going to learn if you don't fail, right? And that's very, very important. And accounting, I don't mean finance here, but hate it. But I mean is accounting for behavior, accounting for value, knowing what goes in, where and how it will come out, right? I think that's also a very, very important sweet spot to manage. I think in closing, I just like to show you how the process works. I spoke about design thinking. I think today, again, as marketers, you should drive this whole concept around a design-driven organization. It's personally worked for me and for some people I work with. And this is, for example, can we scroll up, please? How even large organizations like Toyota do it globally, right? It's all about empathy. It's all about prototyping. It's all about being design-driven. Toyota calls this the perfect way, right, in terms of how they create value. So firstly, how do I understand the direction? What's my North Star? Where do I want to go with my customer, my market? How do I then grasp the current condition? How do I observe what's happening? How do I experiment around that? How do I understand what's really working? What's my target condition, right? So key concept here is, again, as marketers, what is the job the customer is trying to achieve? Job as in not going to work, but in relieving a pain point, what is the customer trying to achieve? And targeting the right job actually takes you a huge distance. So what is that target condition? What is the job or the need? And how do I make it work? And then how do I iterate towards the truth? That really is a fundamental formula that really works from a design perspective and an innovation perspective. Think about it, right? The job of listening to music never changed. How we listen to music changes, right? I have a 15-year-old daughter who came and showed me a tape and asked me, what is it? I'm like, I used to listen to music on that. So it's gone from tape to CD to now Spotify. Music hasn't changed. But where is Maxell, the tape company? I think, Nirmal, you might know. Where is Maxell, the tape company? Gone. But I'm still listening to, don't laugh, but I'm still listening to Jim Reeves. Right? He's around. He's dead, but still around because the job hasn't changed. So what is the job you're fulfilling? I mean, I used to tell this to my design colleagues when I was in apparel manufacturing. We're not sewing clothes. Our job is protection. We are protecting people from the elements. We are protecting them from harm, and we are protecting them from nudity. So today we may stitch, tomorrow we may spray clothes onto them. So how do you travel towards that job? That mandate is only going to come from marketing. That mandate is only going to come from understanding the customer and the job, and following that whole iterative process. Yeah, so please. That's the thought provoke I wanted to leave with all of you today. I think there's no better time than now to start. I think whatever situation we are facing now, while it may be a calamity, it's a challenge, there are also brilliant opportunities on the other side of it. And that opportunity is only possible if we really take this innovation mindset and really look at how we can create value. So I urge all of you to start something, have a side hustle if you can't do it at work, but really look at some problem you want to solve and how you want to exercise your creative brain around solving a problem. Yeah, so as usual, I'm happy to, can we scroll up, please? Yeah, so that brings me to the end of what I wanted to say. And again, thank you for the opportunity. If you need to talk more, need to know more, there's a lot more to talk about. You can scan that code, get in touch. I'll be happy to share the presentation with you or anything else that you'd like to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed Irfan, for your valuable insights on innovation and on being inventive. Moving on to the next speech. Mr. Prabhat Ambegoda currently holds the position of Chief Corporate and Innovation Officer of Sri Lanka Telecom Mobitel. His current portfolio spans across corporate strategy, regulations, tariff, program management, R&D quality assurance, information security, and business continuity management of the company. He joined Sri Lanka Telecom in 1991 as an engineer and counts for over 30 years of multidisciplinary experience in the telecommunication industry in the fields of engineering, corporate planning, new business development, and telecommunications regulations. He counts for 20 years of experience in corporate management of the telecommunication industry as a dynamic and a versatile leader. Mr. Prabhat is a chartered engineer by profession and holds an honors degree of Bachelor of Science in Engineering from the University of Peradeniya, specializing in the field of electrical and electronics engineering. He is a fellow member of the Institution of Engineers in Sri Lanka, the IESL, and holds a Master of Business Administration degree from Anglia Ruskin University of UK. I now cordially invite Mr. Prabhat Ambegoda to share his insights on creating a vibrant platform for innovation and entrepreneurship, key contributors towards the country's economic diversification.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think it was a very good 10-20 minutes from Irfan. Good insights. We have seen that what innovation is and how do you move with innovation for future success. So there are good thought-provoking things that we want to really see how it really be practiced in our day-to-day life to become the business leaders of the country. So I am trying to take you through a few thoughts. I think I'll be mostly aligning with Irfan. I think it will not be any conflicts. If it is so, we'll have some discussions. So I think I am coming from telecommunication industry. My career throughout being in the Sri Lanka Telecom. We are really proud of being being an enabler for the technology for the country throughout, I think, 160 years of the company's continuation. So I think that in that terms, we provide the latest technologies to the country. I think we have not any behind from the world in terms of telecommunication industry. So we bring the up-to-date, the technology in Sri Lanka all the time. We have not been behind at any time. So it is up to the companies and people to use it and make more innovative things. With the use of technology, I think innovation have the hands in hand with the technology most of the time, but it is not the technology. I'm fully agreed. But I think making use of the technology also a very good driver or the vehicle for the innovations. So with that sort of experience, even being the technology introducing company, so we see that we are also a lot to innovate. We are not innovating company, but though it is the technological company, so we have a lot to innovate. So how our organization can become an innovative company is a challenge today. So we are really learning how it can make more innovative, more productive, or else what new things we can do in the future for the country and even to the world. So just telling that, so I just want to touch upon that why innovation matters for the business. So always we're talking about innovation. I think it's a buzzword that everywhere that for any problem we talk about the innovation, the solution. So, but we don't really practice what it is. So there should be a, I think, problem or the not understanding well what innovation is in terms of making use of the innovation. So if I just take a very small example with regard to innovation, so I think we all know about our paddy cultivation. I think 2-3 decades before, how we did the cultivation, even in the preparation of the paddy fields and harvesting. I think we used a lot of manual works, right? So today I think we have so many machineries like tractor, and in the harvesting we have the machine called, I think, booth or something, right? Doing the works very quickly, and people do use it. So think, if we don't have that sort of a machinery adoptions to the industry, with this setup of thing, can you manage the labor what requires for the paddy field? So if that is so what would happen to the paddy industry? I think, lack of rice. So with that, what will happen to our lifestyle? I think we will find something, bread or something like that for one meal most of the time. So if we don't get the innovation in right time, there's a question of survival. So if it is though it is a very simple technology, if it not used, so we will be not having the enough rice for our main meal. Not that only, I think if that is so, what will happen to the vegetable industry? What will happen to the spice industry? So many things could have been changed without using the right technology at the right time. I think I doubt whether your milk industry has happened that. So we imported all the milks, so we could be able to make milk here. So something we could missed, which we really suffering. So that is why actually innovation is important, because no industry can survive if we don't think of innovation for the right time. You'll be missed out. The one thing that you could be in the industry, but you don't know exactly the other surrounding world is changing. So if we don't get adapted to that, one day your customers, your partners will not like to work with you, and you will be throw out from the system. Today there are so many technologies around, I think all the smartphones and other digital technologies. So if you don't get associated even with the technological change as an innovation or whatever the adoption, so that is a matter of surviving. So if that is the case with survival, so how do you think of the growth without innovation? So if you want to grow, so innovation is a buzzword. So we want to apply the innovation, then only you can be in your industry. I think as Irfan mentioned that lifetime of the industry is now getting shorter and shorter. So you can't survive longer anyway if you don't change it. So that is where the importance coming in with the innovation. So if you want to survive or growth, so it's the serious word we need to study. Another thing actually, the innovations comes with the people. I think that is ideas or something coming from the human when it applies. So if you do innovation, you will be with the good talented people and they will like to be with you. If not, I think they will leave so that you could not do anything. So if you have the right people or good people with you, if you can make the growth, then definitely they'll get benefited. So what will happen as a result of that, the good people, talented people will like to join with you. And the customers also like to buy from you. So it will be going to be a vicious cycle. So if you do innovation, the people will like to do with you, and people will like to join with you, and you will get best people with you that you are keep on growing, and you can be the market leader. So this is the vicious cycle. There are three principles that if you do it, and you will have the right talents and other things to continue with the business. So only one thing I want, even you are in the good performing position by doing the innovation, sometimes you will miss it. That we need to be mindful. You see that Nokia and BlackBerry, you know that very famous example, right? So they were the leaders one time and they were washed out. So that means that we have no assurance, even we are performing well with the innovation. If we don't see right, something could happen in the future. So Apple came with this touch phone thing. What is the difference? The functionalities, features are same, but the difference is the touchpad, which can operate with very easily, touching with icons and everything. So all the technologies what they had was replaced. So what that lesson says, even we are performing as a leading company, so that's not the assurance that you can survive. So at any given time, that can be replaced. If you don't see something could happen as an innovative thing in the future, you have to be very conscious. And there are some more things actually we have to get it right. The past success is not a assurance for your future. And most of the things, sometimes we are very much concerned about what our profits last quarter. So what is going to be the next quarter, something 5% increase, and next quarter another 2% increase. So we are very much happy, but end of the day we don't know what in the 2 years time happens. So then you are too late. So not to get too concentrate on the profits what you are earning today. And the customer feedback. So most of the companies we used to decide on customer service. So what customer service says is not the future. So if you are really planning to satisfy the information based on the customer service, we have to be a little bit careful about, so not to be in that manner. So you have to have some articulation future than the present customer outcomes all the time. And sometimes we see you find the new things to do, but you're afraid of cannibalization. So try to secure the existing revenues than the future potential product, and you're not introducing that, and keep you enjoying your revenues and cash, what you are earning today, and will never know it is going to end a very near future. And if you enjoy the very efficient processes, and if you get new things which you try to fit to this process, if it is not fit enough, you are afraid to do it, and again that can be a disaster one day. So I think with the Irfan, so I want to get one point. What innovation means to me, only two things. One is creating idea and taking it to a place where creating value. So if you have the good idea, so that doesn't necessarily say it could put into a creating value. So without creating value, I think we don't identify it as an innovation. Is that right? Right? So if you got them right, apply into a business to create value, then it is an innovation. So getting the ideas in one side is an important thing, where it is also coming from the people with you as a result of maybe deep learning, commitments, understanding a lot of insights and everything, right? So you have to keep secure your idea generation in your company, and you have to manage and prioritize what best idea is the right thing for today, and this is a process. So coming from idea to value creation is not happening in isolation. It's a process, a journey. So it's a managed thing. So while you're talking about the innovation, I think there's a fundamental requirement inside the company. You need to manage the innovation. So in between creating the value to the idea, there are a lot more things to manage. Otherwise, you can't end up with value creation. So if you get to an idea right, then it goes through, I think, a bit of process like prototype developing and put into the testing and all, and you are trying to get into the market or the value creation in terms of profits or efficiency or business model or the market segment or whatever it is. So you need to go to the end in creating, but in between you can apply somewhat technologies or some efficient processes in it. In between also, if it's an intellectual property, you have to save it. So all these are processes you need to manage as a journey. Then only you get end result as an innovation. So my thing is, it's not easy. Inside an organization, though you have the good creative ideas, bringing up to the end is not an easy process. If you're trying to apply it within your company, you will find a lot of resistance. So how to manage is a question today. I think we are full of ideas. If you talk about what we do, I think we can write a book. But the end result is, if you ask him what value you have created from ideas, I think very few can say, we have done it. So what's the wrong is in between there's a big process, big journey. We need to have the right set of activities or the model to bring it up to the place where it creates value. So when you're talking about this innovation management, what I'm talking, so invisible area, there are few areas where we want to get it focused. I mean that if the company or the areas, the related departments or the people don't realize the new innovative idea is creating value, it's very difficult to push it through. So how to get marketed your bright idea or the prototype model, putting into the business within our, among the other portfolios you are having, is something resistive thing. So I think, as you mentioned, it's very difficult to get people accept new things on their comfortable zones, right? So it's a matter of leadership. So innovation is not a matter of the people who are creativity, but with the leadership as well. So if the future-focused leadership exists only, we can get it through. And it has to be incorporated in your strategy. So your future prudeness or future readiness should become a strategy than today's success. So it comes with the leadership and the strategic theme. And it got to be like everybody's acceptable situation where everyone should prepare as a culture to accept new things. As Irfan mentioned, that every new thing will not get success. There could be failures, right? So if your setup is not accepting failures, so that's a problem. So there's a statement that if something going to fail, actually fail fast, not to keep failing and start something new. So that culture, that idea should be in your system. Like that, certain uncertainties, certain adaptable structures, and it has to come as a system approach. Everywhere, it has to get it through until the value creation. You need to get all the systems in line to support this new idea. So just talking about SLT, as I think the company who is serving every part of the country with the people, so we are trying to be get so many innovation inside with some mechanisms. We created our R&D unit and try to build an ecosystem, not for the company, but even for the outsiders. So that's our policy. So this is how we are trying to say that we have the skunk works with R&D itself. We are trying to build our own requirements. While doing so, we are having some model to get other employees joining with the R&D team as a first instance. That we call actually Entrepreneurship Studio. The internal staff, anywhere they are working, they can join with the system and do some innovative work. So from that point, actually, we have created Entrepreneurship Studio where the outsiders can join with us. We are ready to help them as, I mean, that to a certain extent, they are because new startups and everyone, so they have the bright ideas, but they have lack of another knowledge or the capabilities. We are helping them to get going. And also the venture capital fund we created, and we made helping the people. So that we continuing to help the ecosystem. I mean that entrepreneurs or the startups and other employees who can really come up with the new ideas. We are joining hand with them to promote this innovation culture. Also, we got joined with all the potential other institutions, all the universities, some government agencies, software developers, vendors and all. So anyone get joining with us, we are ready to get the help or get other people's assistance for the innovators in the country. So, so we have run a few programs recently. If you could have gone through this public communications, run a innovation studio program in 2021, and Dreamers Wonder program, which is actually recently we run because of this economic crisis. If someone comes up with idea which they are they want help to get it happening, so we are really extended our hands to help them. And hackathon, especially for the social problem, the damage from the elephants is a common thing, so we are trying to get the right idea to implement some solutions. So likewise, we do certain programs as a responsible company to help innovators. So I think what I just talked, I want to endorse with something that we normally accept. The Google, how they have helped developing innovation culture for their employees. They expect 80% of the time to be spent for the company's task, and they are kept 20% free to do anything by their own interest, right? So that is where we can tap the human's intellectuality, getting trained for coming new ideas. Likewise, every human, every employee in our organization has good creativity. What we did not do is we have not given any chances for them to come up with their own ideas. So if we can do that, I think we could get a lot of new ideas. And if we can get the frame, that enabling framework as innovation management, so we could, I think, find a lot more opportunities to do well. So by telling that, I think I stop my delivery. I think I have no any conflicts with you, Irfan, about innovation understanding. So what we do want to see that not just getting the ideas, but we have to get it until it creating a value. It's a process, a journey. So we want to continue to manage that. Then only we will get the real outcome of the innovation exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prabhat Ambegoda, for sharing your valuable insights on the principles of innovation and on performance-driven innovation management. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now the time for a thought-provoking and insightful panel discussion on innovation and entrepreneurship. I warmly invite our panelists, Mr. Ahmed Irfan and Mr. Prabhat Ambegoda, along with the moderator for today's panel discussion, Dr. Nirmal De Silva, who is a strategy consultant, SME mentor, board director, and associate professor in business management. Over to you, Dr. Nirmal.
We got a 2-minute small exercise for all of y'all. Please stand up from wherever you all are sitting and find a new seat to sit within the next 2 minutes. Wherever you want. Find a new seat. Not the front row seat, come on. That's too easy. Something new, somebody from the Fairer Sex event, I don't know. We are going to talk about innovation here, and if you all can't do a simple exercise and move away from your comfort zone, how are we going to talk about innovation today? Come on guys, it's not rocket science. Good, feeling a little bit uncomfortable? Right, so before we start, we got 2 gentlemen. I've only understood half of it, simply because they are experts in it. I'm going to have some thought-provoking discussions with them. But before we do that, another small exercise. It's 7:20 p.m. All of you all either want to go to the closest club and have a drink or go home to your family. So let's make this next half an hour a little bit more interesting. How many of y'all are from branding? Half a hand means I think it's full, right? How many of y'all are from market research? How many of y'all are from marketing communications? How many of y'all are here because your bosses wanted you all to be here? Fantastic. How many of y'all are from marketing? Fantastic. So finally, we got the functional level marketing people, the decision makers, the boardroom. How many of the marketers are at boardroom level here? Fantastic. 25 years ago also the same conversation. Why isn't marketers getting into the boardroom? Even today we are having the same question and the same set of answers, right? So let's try to break that myth on how marketers can be entrepreneurs to create value and be in the boardroom by virtue of your ability as opposed to your functional skill set. So this is something that I'm going to speak with the two gentlemen. Irfan talked about the innovator's dilemma. Now let's talk about the marketer's dilemma, right? And we'll start today from that perspective onwards. So Irfan, the first question to you. What can a marketer, a career marketer, do to think and act differently and bring in innovation within the organization?
Okay. So, great question. I think it's something that I also gave a lot of thought, right? It started off as an ad guy. So first thing, from a personal point of view, I think you need to embrace the mashup. So let me explain that, right? There's a huge mashup happening today. Even if you take industries, telcos are converging with banking, apparel is converging with electronics and material science. No industry is its own today, right? So why are you just a marketer? I think you need to embrace the mashup, and I think your skill sets have to grow, firstly, and the skill sets have to grow to appreciate entrepreneurship, technology, and let's say transformation a lot more. So I think that embracing the mashup is the first thing. What can a marketer do to kind of get over this, let's say, marketer's dilemma around innovation, value creation is, I think, like I said earlier, you're the custodian of value in the organization. You know the consumer, you know the market, you're managing the value chain, you're looking at how, you're basically in charge of creating that value. But I think, too many marketing organizations, marketing is mostly just relegated to communication and branding. And I think that's got to change. Right, I fought it all my life while I worked in marketing. You're not here to run communication campaigns. You're here to basically bring the voice of the consumer in, create purpose, drive ideation, create purposeful innovation, almost be the curator of value creation on behalf of the consumer in your organization. So you can't do that if you don't embrace a mashup. And if you embrace a mashup, doing that becomes a lot easier. So let's start there, Nirmal. That's my initial response.
Fantastic. So over to you, Prabhat. You head innovation at SLT. What is the biggest challenge you have within your organization to bring in innovation?
I think the belief in innovation is one of the critical challenge across the company. So when you bring something new, people will see that, you'll clap it, but when they want to accept it, they will all comfortable with what they are existing and enjoying. So if they want to change it or make it happening, because I see that innovators are doing innovation is one side, so they can't get the thing across whole value chain. So others want to see how it is done. So when they are comfortable with what they are doing, So it's a very hard thing for every stakeholder to convince to bring this innovation, make it happening. Other thing is actually sometimes the convince the leadership. So as the leadership is full of many more activities, they have given little more time to see the challenge for the long future, what is going to happen. So I'm not saying that it's not happening, but convincing them and the value of the future in terms of this unknown thing is a difficult task. So I think that's one of the biggest challenge we're seeing with the R&D.
I think what Prabhat was trying to decode was in the innovation balance sheet, your strategic asset can be a liability if not managed properly. Essentially, I think that's what he was trying to say. Right, so I think, Irfan, you probably heard the ego of some of these marketers during your presentation, because for maybe 15, 20 years, they've been doing this role fantastically well and driving Sri Lankan brands. But I think you heard them a little bit talking about areas that they're very comfortable with, research, and now the new term, insights, etc. Let's talk a little bit about the proactive versus reactive strategy that you're talking about. What exactly can marketers do in their DNA to be more proactive, to create the empathy that you talked about? Now, we all know what empathy is all about, but how can they create that empathy in their day-to-day DNA?
Okay. Marketers having ego. No, I don't think they do. Right. So how do you decode empathy, and so how do you get more proactive rather than reactive? I think that's really the question here, right? So I think with marketers, how you can get more proactive is essentially, if you really look at it, driving what is empathy. How do I feel what you feel, right? So let me kind of peg this discussion around a favorite word or a attribute that as marketing even I've used, right? So whenever you're working on a strategy or a brand plan or a marketing plan, you look at what's the research. Based on the research, what's the trend, right? What's the trend? Now, in another boardroom far away, your competitor is also looking at the same trend, right? So then everybody ends up doing the same thing. It's generally a race to the airwaves so that you can say, I did it first. Sounds familiar? So that's got to change, right? So I think if marketers want to get into the driving seat and make this transition into innovation and drive empathy, firstly, research will give you trends, but spending time with the market and the customer really helps you understand the shifts. There's a big difference between a trend and a shift, right? Shift is something that's happening now. For example, if you take millennials, right, there is a huge shift from ownership to experience. I think you've heard of this, right? Millennials don't believe in owning cars and houses, right, and tying down their income to EMIs and loan payments. They'd rather travel and live a good life and have a more fulfilling experience. That's a fundamental consumer shift. And here we are chasing trends, right? It's not going to work. Trends are good. It's going to give you some incremental benefit. But what are you doing to identify the shift? I think if you can just do that, that's going to drive that change. So how do you do that? Again, to answer your question, I think. So where are shifts occurring? It's not going to come from a research report. It's not even going to come from the data that you see in your organization. It's going to come from spending time. So again, right, if you have time, go check out The Innovator's DNA. It's a fantastic book, but also if you image search it on Google, it basically talks about what you need to have to become a good innovator, right? So this DNA was derived from studying over 100 of the world's best innovators for more than 20 years, right? So from Jeff Bezos to the guy who developed Intuit to, you know, what characteristics do they have? They do 4 things really well. Firstly, they question everything, right? They question everything. And as a result, they challenge the status quo, right? They observe, a lot of time spent. You can't empathize if you don't. Observing is also called listening with your eyes, right? You see a lot more if you observe. Thirdly, they experiment. And fourthly, they network. Unfortunately, not this kind of networking, but more networking around ideas, possibilities, and collaborators. And that's very possible for marketing folk to do. That's the fundamental of an innovator's DNA, which I think marketing people are far more equipped to do than anybody else. I don't see a finance person networking, yes, questioning like hell, but apart from that, they're not going to network. As you can see, I don't like finance people. They're not going to network or observe, right? So I think if you want to make that shift, that's where you need to go. Just think about those 4 skills. That's going to take you there.
Thanks, Irfan. Prabhat, over to you. Another question before we give the opportunity to the participants to also ask some questions. With relevance to if you were to drive innovation within your organization and also drive the millennials and the Gen Zs, what are some of the things that you would do to engage them?
I think in thinking of innovations, we normally deal mostly with some technologies so that young people will really love to have this technological association so that many new ideas with them. So we want to get them freedom of practicing what their new thoughts. So and it is very important to get them networking, not within a very small circle, but to expose them multiple disciplines so that they will really understand the right insight which the customer's point of view. I mean, that as a maybe innovation, sometimes mostly some products say it can relate with some technologies, but the technology is not the matter, but what experience comes with that is a thing they want to understand in proper manner, so that they want to get network with multidisciplines, which is related to maybe the appearance, maybe the different use of that, or how it could be seeing from different users. So I think we want always to get mixed with sharing their ideas in different perspective, so that it can be intellectuals in the same thing and it's other cross sections. Even sometimes we see we normally use the segmentation for any services, but it has to be not only that cross section. We have to get even different other segments where sometimes it may be the success of not that what we thought, but it can be a different opportunities in other segment as well. So it's a multidisciplinary cross-section networking would be really worked and get them freedom to share their thoughts and comes up with very crazy ideas and need to accept some process to accept those.
Right. So Irfan talked about the performance organization and the creative organization. At the same time he was talking about it, I was going through some of the new migration numbers of the country, and I can also very rightly say you have the performance organization, creative organization, and the migration organization at the moment happening. So over to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions on these two experts on innovation and entrepreneurship that you'd like to take a crack at? Maybe if somebody can pass the microphone across. This is a very Hadawatingma Sri Lankan attitude of questions means problem.
Okay, let me start the flow. These two, both Irfan as well as Nirmal, for both of you, you guys are involved with the youth, the younger generations, more or less, in terms of this innovation process, mentoring as well as in your workplaces, see them through carrying out projects. How do you find the comparatively what it was and now? How do you find the innovation drives the youth to come up with the next big ideas that Sri Lanka is looking for? How do you find it? Is it happening? Is it are we seeing it in the process happening, or are we seeing now? You are speaking about the migration, so that will also have an effect on it. But do we see that they get that opportunity, and are they coming through that process? Are we seeing the results coming out, or are we still in the process of trying to figure out where the big idea is?
You want to start?
Yeah, Sujit, let me take a step back on that question. I think, and I think Prabhat mentioned that as well, ideas, in my humble opinion today, is quite cheap. Everybody can come up with an idea. But if you are to translate that into a strategy, execute it via a business model, that takes a lot of effort, finesse, and thinking. When we talk about entrepreneurship in organizations, we talk about thinking and acting like an entrepreneur first, which is where I essentially talk about entrepreneurship. I think that's the starting point. Taking the political component out of it, if you want to really understand the youth and how innovation can play, there is no better case study than the Aragalaya. Take the good, bad, and the ugly out of the equation. In terms of collaborating, in terms of bringing ideas, in terms of mobilizing, in terms of thinking out of the box, in terms of not getting caught at that point of time, required a different way of thinking, required a different thought process, requiring the power of digital to take the message across. So to answer your question, yes, Sri Lankan youth have that capability. The problem is, it's not the youth and that generation. It's the previous generation who is not allowing that to happen. Recently, I've heard marketing departments talking about survival KPIs. Now, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Every KPI first is about survival and then about growth. There is nothing in between. But the notion of bringing in a fancy word alone might kill in that creative organization that we are talking about. You can't run it parallelly. So, yeah, from my humble opinion, once again, I think we have that capability. It's good that people are migrating. If they go and think like an entrepreneur, set up a business over there, bring back the dollars over here and the jobs, the country will benefit. But the question is also to people around here, right? If you're 15, 20, 25, 30 years within the same organization, a fixed asset within the organization, and not tried even a side hustle or not tried something new whilst COVID was there and whilst lockdown was there, the chances are, how are you going to drive innovation and that thinking in your own organization? I think that's the $1 million question.
Yeah, what more can I say? No, I'm just kidding. So I think comprehensive answer, no shortage of ideas, Sujit. And interesting, I was just going through some data yesterday. So if you look at the Global Innovation Index or Innovation Readiness Index, in 2021, Sri Lanka was ranked 95th, right, in terms of innovation readiness. But they also track what's called innovation input and what's called, so input is education, what is the input versus the output. With very little input or output, the ratio from input to output is a lot greater. It's grown in the middle of a pandemic. So which means there's no shortage of ideas. And again, to the analogy along the Aragalaya, I think no shortage of ideas, no shortage of the ability to mobilize, no shortage of the understanding around digital and what it can unleash. But what is missing is an enabling environment. can you get a loan today for an idea that you have? Where is your, if I was a youth today, forget youth, for even me, what is my social capital today? And based on my social capital, can I get funding? No, no way. So, I mean, we have some fundamental issues to really address. If not, we're going to lose most of our youth, and you're going to have old dogs like me learning new tricks and hanging around. So I think we need to fix that.
Is that the thought? Come on, guys. They prepped up, I think, more to answer marketers as opposed to any other functional leadership. Any questions, guys?
Sujit broke the ice. So normally it's like, so that's done. No questions.
Okay, let's make it fun then, right? How many of y'all are working in the field of marketing for more than 10 years? Very seldom. Ilanga prashne මොකක් අහයිද? Right. Less than 10 years? Right. Okay. If you were to change from marketing to any other functional role, irrespective of your skills, competencies, or your qualifications, and you were to think innovatively from a career progression perspective, what are some of the things Prabhat and Irfan they can do? Because at the end of the day, not all of them are going to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But they need to be entrepreneurs. I think that's what we're trying to drive, right? So if they feel that they have better career progression of being jack of all trades as opposed to functional leaders, where can that innovative iteration or the MVP for their career, let's put it in that sense, where can that start from?
Prabhat, you want to go first? Okay.
I think that is the biggest dilemma in this country. So we are always to be functional, specific personalities. That's actually we want to break our mindsets. So we are from our education, I think itself, we are framing most of the occasions. So we try to be in the comfort zones, I think. And if you really get different challenges, we try to see that is not mine and it is some other's duty, and transfer the responsibility to the next person. So I think if we get, first of all, that our mind dilemma is taken away, I don't find anyone can object to accept any role, because even though you get some education about subject matter, but in the practical sense, so everyone is really exposed and having enough knowledge. No one can say, I can't do that, I can do this. So everyone has that same capabilities. So what I think lacking is to accept it, understanding our own skill set. Our mind has a lot of room to do many more new things.
Okay, so can I ask a question? How many of you here are also entrepreneurs? One hand, two. Yeah, so great, okay. I think if you really want to get to that, couple of things. I mean, if I were to take an analogy from the telco sector, your mind is a patch of grass that you've been given. How do you fertilize it? Reload your mind all the time. You may have so let's say for me, I mean, just personal example, right? I qualified in marketing, actually passed out as a software engineer, but went in from there to advertising, to manufacturing, and now back to digital. You have to constantly, you can't stay in, this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but don't stay in the same job or the same role for more than 3 years. That's very important, right? Our parents told us, work for the same company. That's not good. Even in the same company, look for different roles. Reload your mind, which is so much online courses today, material today. You can from teaching yourself design thinking to Python to prototyping a mobile app today. You don't have to be a technology person to do that. So kind of reload your mind. But I think I closed my presentation saying start a side hustle. I think that's, if you want to make this shift, start something, fail again, make it work, and you'll naturally get there. There's no better way to do it than that.
But that doesn't apply when you go for voting. Huh? If they fail, chuck them out. Right. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Irfan, for that last comment, because in my own experience in working with marketers and in industry, one of the shortcomings I find in marketers is that they don't embrace outside marketing any skills. They try to avoid those skills because they feel that is an unnecessary thing for them because their course area is marketing. Now, this doesn't help any organization or doesn't help that individual. As a young person, I was put into the deep end after having qualified in marketing. I was put into the deep end to look after a factory, because my managing director thought that I had always come out with new ideas at the meetings. So he put me into the deep end of running a factory. Look at the commercial side as well as the factory management side. And I can tell you that particular judgment on that managing director paved the way for me to proceed in my career, because I embraced many areas outside marketing, many areas which were considered mundane. We always consider other professional aspects of disciplines mundane, and only marketing is innovative, etc. But it's not so. We have to embrace all those areas to become a thought-provoking individual. Second thing that I want to say from the outcome of the discussion that we've had, we have got into a rut. That's a bad word to use, but we have got into a silo because we think only in terms of Sri Lanka.
Yes.
We can't innovate in terms of Sri Lanka. We need to think. Now you see the difficulties we have in generating foreign currency because we have been thinking only in Sri Lanka. We are looking at an import-based trading activity or something like that without looking at something that we can innovate. I'm happy that there is a gentleman from the Sri Lanka Telecom, because way back in 2001, I think 2001 or 2, Mr. Lalit Dimel was chairman of Sri Lanka Telecom. I was telling him that in 1 year I had to go 3 times to Singapore to buy telephones for my company. And there are no telephones manufactured here. Yeah. Whereas we had 2 million households having telephones. So we have to think, we have to encourage all these young people. We are now facing out of our careers. There are a number of young people with new ideas, and I'm encouraging them to think outside the whole aspect of marketing, think in terms of business. When you, as an entrepreneur, you have to think in terms of business. As an innovator, you can, as you said very rightly, empathize with the end consumer. I must share with you all one of the things that I learned when I went to New Zealand is that New Zealand is the highest, has the highest percentage, per capita percentage of innovations in the world. Yep. Highest percentage, but lowest percentage of commercialization because their market is small. So the New Zealanders are thinking in terms of New Zealand and innovating, but they can't take it to the market. There is no. So most of the New Zealand innovations are commercialized by the Australians. And this is an example to us also, because we can innovate here and think that it has no potential in this country, but we have a potential. We have so many markets in the neighborhood. So thank you very much for the insight that you have given. I think what you all have said today should encourage the younger marketers, should encourage them to think. I'm not using the cliche of outside the box. I'm thinking for their own survival, they have to think differently. And
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So I think Mr. Pereira had a valid point. Before we give it to this gentleman, how many of you all are on social media, specifically on Facebook? It's not rocket science, right? So now we are going to think innovatively, right? I need a small help from you all. Today, with whatever post that you are going to do even now or when you leave from here, please put in the hashtag AIMGSL in your post and also one hashtag visit Sri Lanka. Right? I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone here, thinking innovatively because you all have thousands of friends and suddenly within that half an hour, this is the digital expert, we will get a huge amount of volume for both these brands who are hosting us and the country that needs dollars and tourism. So please do that as part and parcel. Make a mudal gewa pracharane raddak no way. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, hi Irfan. Irfan, just a question on the previous discussion you mentioned. People doesn't have the capital, especially the innovators. There's no link to get the capital. How do you see what needs to be done in Sri Lanka to create that environment, and what is it different from other countries? Because I think US and all that, they have the right network, venture, capitalists are there. So is it different here? What needs to be done here?
Yeah, I think that environment is at a nascent stage. Personally, I don't believe in venture capital because it has a very destructive element to it. And I don't think a small market like Sri Lanka can really benefit from venture funds or capital per se. So I think a couple of things need to align here, Sumudai. I think the youth coming up with ideas, I think Prabhat also alluded to it, you need to have a structured process in the way you develop those ideas, right? I think it's the onus is on people like us to, the earlier generations to kind of provide that tacit knowledge and help you to structure it. But I think if you really want to make innovation work, I think a lot of organizations, a particular model for Sri Lanka, given the market, given the concentration, and given the organizations, a lot more like what Embryo is trying to do. How can organizations come together to facilitate this? Because it's not a lot of funding that you're talking about, right? You need a little bit funding to get to what's called a MVP, a minimum viable product. A minimum viable product will tell you, is this the right product? Is there a market for it? And can it be scaled? It doesn't need a lot of money. It needs expertise. It needs some skill. It needs enablement. So I think we should stay away from the venture capital space. That's my view. But more corporate benevolence per se would probably be a better route to go if the corporates can be benevolent. I think that's another. I've tried with the banks, it doesn't work. So let's see if the corporates can do it.
Very thin line between venture capital and vulture capital.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a classic point that you brought in, and for the benefit of everybody here, is that one of the new methods of raising capital is crowdfunding. And I know marketers love case studies. And again, if I go back to the Aragale, that's a classic example of how crowdfunding worked, from the water bottle to the food to everything, on a social cause. And again, if you have friends and family, you'd call it bootstrapping, that's startup lingo. But there are no boots at the moment also because of import restrictions. But nevertheless, if you want to look at new ways of raising capital, and I think for the benefit of everybody, Irfan, I think what you mentioned was also, I know companies like to boast about CSR budgets and the impact that they are creating to society, but creating a separate fund from their own profits to encourage innovation alone should come into the CEO's playbook. Sadly, for CEOs, their next fat bonus or the new vehicle or the holiday home may not come about by creating that additional amount to encourage innovation. So if you are an aspiring CEO or now the newest term, CEO designate, please look into that, because that will definitely give the youth an opportunity to come and share ideas. I want to showcase an example before I go to Prabhat, because I think they work also very closely. There is a Sri Lankan organization in the logistic industry. They are doing an innovation drive within the organization. So for the next 1 month, every Friday for 2 hours, they are getting all their staff to come up with new ideas for the business. That is every Friday, 2 hours, the entire staff, 2,000 plus. Huge decision by the senior leadership. So some of the things that Sri Lankan companies are doing, and how does innovation work, Prabhat, at SLT? Can you afford to give 2 hours every Friday to the staff?
Yeah, I think it's obviously possible because that outcomes will pay off. Only that we have to organize ourselves, but it's not an impossible thing. Actually, we try to get most of the networking to get connected. The interested part is not the compulsion. So we have kept open all the employees to get joined with the innovation process. And if you found someone is interested, and we try to pick them up for getting the innovate or R&D activities or whatever the interested things he is capable of. So I think we are very much good suggestion that we can keep some time for everyone to come up and get participate and think of their own way of ideas to share with others. So I think it's a take-home point for me that we will really look at positively to in the company as well.
Great. So we got 300 seconds more, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions you may have? Yep. To the gentleman over there.
Hi, everyone. I think as a young adult myself, I want to pitch in on behalf of the youth. So when it comes to innovation, there's always change. So how do we facilitate change in big corporations? I think the voice of the youth is not heard in most of the big corporations, at least where the change could come from. It would be heard from until upper manager level, but it won't go right to the top. So how do you facilitate that? I think everyone here spoke about giving youth the chance, but how do we do that in big corporations, and how does that change management come from the top, so that as a youth that even we would get motivated to stay in a company? Like you said, I think like Irfan said, a lot of youth don't stick around in one company, and that's one of the reasons. You try a lot, but then nothing works and you move on to the next. So how do you facilitate that change management?
Thank you. Good question. So I think any innovation, is a lot of change and requires change management. And I think if you want to, I just share a tactic that has worked for where I work. And organizations are doing this. You can, for example, create a shadow board or a shadow management team of your younger workforce, right? So you do have your board, you have your senior management, but I think it's the younger people today who can feel the pulse better, have better ears to the ground, have more ideas. And why does not that happen through a shadow board of younger stars in the organization? That works. So I think organizations need to start thinking more like that. Empower youth, create more open lines, flatter structures, concepts like shadow boards made up of younger people. I think is generally a good way to go. It's working for me, so I think it will work for anyone. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to tell you one of the trends that is happening in Sri Lanka is that the ladies, the women of this country, the youth, young women of this country are becoming more assertive than the young men of this country. They are able to convince the management, they are able to convince boards on what has to be done in a very, very appreciative, empathetic manner. And that has succeeded. One of the problems in youth, among Sri Lankan youth, men, particularly boys, is that they want to be forceful without having the substance to support that force. Whereas the ladies have done their homework, they are forceful, but they have the backing of their intonation to support it. So take a cue out of the girls who are young and coming up, and your challenge is not from outside, the challenge is from inside.
Thank you, sir. Voice, message is loud and clear.
Well, one thing is for sure, when you look at our wives, mums, etc., and when you teach at business school as well, we always say that the natural entrepreneurial instincts are there with the with the females. So I think taking cue of what Mr. Perra said, huge opportunity, guys, within your workplaces as well. Just to add on a point, sir, it's very clear. If the organization is not going to support your voice, your generation is not going to stick there. That's for sure. And that's where retention becomes a huge challenge. So we got time for just one more question. The assertive females, would you like to ask a question?
Assertive and empathetic, both.
Yes, both. Right, again, Hadawatingma Sri Lankan attitude. Thank you very much for being consistent with what Sri Lanka is all about. So I really do not know this topic that much, even though I teach, because it's easy to teach, very difficult to do it at practice. That's what these two gentlemen do. So thank you for AIMG for inviting all three of us today. So I just jotted down some points. I'm not at all poetic, but let me take some of the words of these two gentlemen and conclude today's proceedings with some poetic influx. So half in, half out might give you a lifespan larger than 2 decades. Creating something new might be the performance that you require, but it's still a process, like what Irfan mentioned. Whether it's reactive or proactive does not matter, as long as you don't have the leadership to drive both of them. And what Prabhat essentially mentioned was, whatever the studio that you have, whether it's entrepreneurship or venture capital, you need to ensure that you move away from the comfort zone. And why you need to move out of the comfort zone is for survival and growth, motivational, and the choice of people. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You've been absolutely kind on all three of us, and hope you have a great day. Your Sabe Aragale starts tomorrow when you think and act like an entrepreneur with an innovation mindset. Hashtag Sabe Aragale, hashtag AIMGSL, hashtag Visit Sri Lanka. Thank you.
An absolutely brilliant discussion indeed. So much of rich information and novel perspectives to take home. Thank you very much for that interactive session. I would now like to call upon the chairman of the Association of International Marketing Graduates in Sri Lanka, Mr. Sujit Silva, to present the tokens of appreciation to the speakers of today's program. We would first like to call upon Mr. Ahmad Irfan, Chief Digital Officer at EFL, to accept the token of appreciation. And next, we would like to call upon Mr. Prabhat Ambegoda, Chief Corporate and Innovation Officer at Sri Lanka Telecom Mobitel, to accept the token of appreciation. And last but not least, we would like to call upon Dr. Nirmal De Silva, Strategic Consultant, SME Mentor, Board Director and Associate Professor in Business Management, to accept the token of appreciation. Thank you, Mr. Silva. I now warmly invite the Treasurer of the Association of International Marketing Graduates in Sri Lanka, Mr. Roshan Kaluarachi, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you. A very good evening to all of you. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. As we come to the end of the professional series, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, it is my pleasure to propose the vote of thanks to all who have helped us to make this event a success. First and foremost, I would like to thank the keynote speaker, Mr. Ahmad Irfan, Chief Digital Officer, EFL, guest speaker, panelist, Mr. Prabhat Ambegoda, Chief Corporate and Innovation Officer, Sri Lanka Telecom and Mobitel, and the moderator, Dr. Nirmal De Silva, Strategic Consultant, SME Mentor, Board Director, and Associate Professor in Business Management, for the insights shared with us on this timely topic. All of us here today were inspired by your great words. Thank you very much. My sincere gratitude goes out to all participants who are present today. We appreciate you for taking the time and effort to be here. Hope to see you all at our future events. I also extend my thanks to all sponsors, official telecommunications partner SLT Mobitel, official banking partner Sampath Bank PLC, official payment partner Multilac, and corporate partners Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation and Emerging Media. We look forward to your continued support. Hosting a successful event involves a lot of people, and I thank the staff of Jetwing Columbus 7 for all their assistance, board and staff of AIMG, and to all those who have helped us make this event a possibility. Thank you for being with us. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kaluarachi. We now conclude today's program of Professional Series Innovation and Entrepreneurship, organized by the Association of International Marketing Graduates in Sri Lanka, the AIMG. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed today's session and gathered a heap of beneficial insights and knowledge on innovation and entrepreneurship. Thank you very much for being a part of this event, and also a big thank you to our eminent speakers and sponsors for adding much value for today's program. Have a pleasant evening and stay safe.